this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Davis Mattek is a fantasy analyst who co-hosts the Swolecast, does work for Flock Fantasy, and has his own YouTube channel at Davis_Mattek. He's a dad, a skateboarder, a fan of many teams, and he's probably drafted more best ball lineups than you have this year. These are his late round perspectives. This episode is sponsored by DraftKings. We've partnered up with DraftKings again this year for Best Ball, and we've got a can't-miss offer on their biggest Best Ball contest ever. $20 million in total prizes. It's draft one, get one. Draft your team once, no weekly lineup management, and your top scorers start automatically each week, all season long. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app and sign up with promo code LATEROUND. Enter a lineup in the $20 million Best Ball contest for $25 and get a bonus ticket for a second entry. 2 shots at the title. Draft one, get one, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Davis Mattek.
You dug it up?
I don't think that the world has heard all of the drops in the way that we used to communicate back in the day.
No, there's a whole generation of people who play fantasy football who don't even know who Doran Dickerson is, JJ.
Oh, wait, you mean, okay, actually, before I do this, I have to preface, okay, so you and I have known each other for like 13, 14 years. I mean, it's been a minute.
Long time,
right?
Long time.
Yeah. And early on, when you came onto the scene, you were the sports wonderkin, right?
That was literally the name of my blog, yes.
Yeah, like quite literally 16 years old or something, like analyzing fantasy football. And it's kind of stuck in a way. I do want to ask you about that, actually. Like, do you feel like that you've been stuck as like fantasy football's little brother in a way? Like, and does it bother you if you feel that way?
It doesn't bother me.
Okay.
It just is what it is. I'm comfortable with it. But it is very funny that I'm a 33-year-old man who owns a home and has a child. And like if I called Drew Dinkmeyer, the way Drew would think of me is as of like a high school student asking for like who's like trying to finish a project and like needs an answer from his dad.
It's true because like you I mean, like in my mind, it's similar. Like, but our like you're only like 5 years younger than me. It's not even like.
It's just that I started doing this professionally at a really young stage of my life when I was like irresponsible, like I was in college, like I had roommates, and the generation of fantasy guys ahead of me, they had kind of all just passed that. They were all married. It's so even though we're not that far apart in actual years, it's where we were in our lives when we all met each other.
Right. Cause I had started like after college, I was already like, I was early in terms of settling in with my wife and such. Cause we had started dating when we were 19, you know? So it was just like that kind of like vibe for sure. But when you came onto the scene, so like you and I connected and like we did shows and stuff and, you know, we were friends. We got to meet each other in like San Francisco back in the day at one of the conferences and whatnot, where you famously wore the bucket hat with the tie-dye t-shirt.
And the weed socks.
Yeah, and the weed socks.
I had to wear everything I had.
So I always would poke fun at you that your voice sounded like it was auto-tuned. That there was this like this piece of your voice that sounded like you were editing it in some way. Clearly you're not. I mean, I mean you've now done literal thousands of shows and like we've been together and I've talked to you and hung out with you plenty. But in doing that, like in coming to that like conclusion, and this is like, you know, 2014-ish time frame or whatever, where like AI wasn't a thing, we're editing audio and whatnot. And so like I was editing all of my own audio for like Living the Stream, and I started messing around in GarageBand, and that's where I'm like, oh, I can auto-tune stuff and I can sound like Davis. So for instance, on Davis's birthday, I sent him
Happy birthday, Davis Mattek.
Isn't that wild? I mean, that is such a time portal. That is incredible. But yeah, people always have opinions on my voice. It's not a standard white guy voice.
Interesting. Like still to this day?
Still to this day. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, you were mentioning the Doran Dickerson thing. I mean, I'm a Pitt alum, so I know Doran Dickerson more intimately. if you will. But this is back in the RotoViz days when the big thing back then was like the big athletic wide receivers, right? And so I wasn't even prospecting at this point. You were doing, you've always done kind of like prospecting work and dynasty work and whatnot. And this is when Doran Dickerson was coming out. This is the last drop, I promise. The final drop.
Bro, homeboy Doran Dickerson is the man. Have you seen his 40 times?
This was before RAS even existed or before Kent had the big site. I mean, he would have been the 10 RAS guy. He would have been 10-0-0. Yeah. He was
definitely. Now he's a Pittsburgh like sports radio guy. Like he's like pretty big in sports media and stuff in Pittsburgh.
I hope he works out all the time. I hope he's still absolutely jacked.
still has the athletic profile. But look, it's good to have you on. It's good to talk ball as usual. We've kind of introduced you in your career and like what you've been doing, but I like to do this with, I mean, technically you're a new perspectives guest. I don't think you've done perspectives yet, but you've done.
I think I did like the first year you did this.
Oh, so did you do it?
I think so. Or maybe no. I think I came on an episode of Becoming a Best Ball.
Yeah, I know you've done Best Ball, bro. Yeah.
Yes.
But just let everyone know like where it started and where you're at and the kind of analyst you are so that we can sort of like place you and then understand the perspective that you're coming from with the questions I'm going to ask you.
So I got my first job doing sports content on the internet, writing for some guy's blog when I was 18. So when I was 18, that would have been 2010.
Some random guy? Like
honest to God, this is a true story. It is my grandmother was just searching Craigslist job postings and was like, this guy was looking for sports writers on his blog. And she's like, Davis would be perfect for this. He never shuts a up. So he needs more outlets to do it. That to the best of my memory, that is how it happened. And so I do that. And I played fantasy football since I was 6 years old or whatever, because my dad was big into it. I don't remember exactly how David Kitchen found me, but David Kitchen found my Twitter profile and was like, hey, do you want to do some unpaid labor for me for fantasysports.org? And I was like, would love to, Soccer Dave, to do some unpaid labor. And then basically, honestly, shout out to David Kitchen, because probably none of it ever would have happened without him, the COO of Late Round Industries. Yeah. And then, so I worked for Dave for fantasysports.org and Fantasy Insiders. Then David ran that business into the ground, and I got a job. I worked for a B2B DFS provider. So their idea for this company was, we are going to build a DFS product for all the casinos and sports books in Europe, because everyone in Europe is hip to gambling. It's very funny how their culture works compared to here, but they don't do fantasy sports at all there. So their idea was, we'll just sell these sports books and these casinos the DFS product and see if people like it. No one liked it. So I got downsized from there. Then I got hired at Daily Roto by Drew Dinkmeyer and Michael Leone. They left to found ETR. Mm-hmm. And then I got, so then Daily Roto shuttered, but they were owned by a larger company that does TV. And so then I did TV, sports TV for like 3 years down here in my basement. Then that company folded, and now I'm self-employed.
A crazy journey. Great. But the one through line is that a lot of these companies are folding.
Turns out that if you are not one of the absolute biggest companies in sports, I was about to say it's 50-50 if you survive. I'd say it's about 20-80 you survive. And it's very, very difficult to do. And you either have to have a super bare bones operation. Like, people might think of like a lot of these sites they subscribe to is like, dude, there are so many, like, this is crazy. It's like, no, they have like 11 employees, like it's tougher than you think.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And I was obviously joking with you being a reason for any of that happening. It's more
I didn't help.
Yeah, right. But it's more so like, I do think that people don't realize like how many, even like you going through that story, I was going through like some random companies that like we would work with, but not for, and then they just like, remember Fanium?
So many. So I mean, like, I have so many experiences with companies that have reached out to me, and I've been
and it came to my head, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot that this company exists. All the DFS sites that came and went, like all of the, and it's, I mean, you're still standing number one, which is amazing. And
barely.
Like, but this is what you've known for your career, right? Like this is
I've never had an office job, never had to wear my last real job where I had to go to a physical location was I delivered Domino's pizzas in college until I was 20. And then, well, frankly, and this, no one is going to believe this, but DFS used to be so easy that really I was making way more money playing DFS than I was from Soccer Dave's company or whatever. Yeah. I was able to support myself playing DFS for a long time until the games got really hard, and now could definitely not do that.
Yeah, now we're best ball bros.
Now we're best ball bros, where you can just lose every entry and you say it's just variance, dude. It's only been 8 slates. It's only been 8 slates, dude. Come on, what am I, a magician? Come on.
Right. And so, like, from a process standpoint and like evaluation standpoint, where are you at now these days from like a data versus film perspective?
I mean, all data pretty much. So I guess another interregnum in there is that when RotoViz was starting, when it was Bales, John Moore, Fantasy, and John. Did I say John Moore? Mm-hmm. So I was like the third person to ever have a published article on RotoViz back in the day. So that's basically how I learned about fantasy football. Is I read Fantasy's book, I read all of Bales's books, and I was like, yeah, this makes a ton of sense on how to. So it's pretty. I'd say like, I don't know, 95% data, 5% vibes.
Yeah, I mean, look, you did the slat model this off season. Some are saying that I'm gonna send you a cease and desist for the name of the prospect model.
I mean, you definitely should, because it just works. I mean, it works too well. The Zap model, slat model. Although I have what's the Zap acronym?
Zacharyson adjusted prospect.
Okay,
model.
That's really good. Mine is statistical likelihood of achieving production. But yes, it is nothing but a derivative knockoff with I'm sure many of the same inputs. I mean, something you want to know, a real wool from the eyes thing is I've realized as everyone learns how to use ChatGPT and stuff is that most prospect models are actually quite bad because there's too much data. It's overfitted. Right. It's quite bad. You start adding more things in, and if you're really testing it rigorously, your computer will tell you this does not make any sense. You should not include this.
Was that a big finding for you? Because like, was this the first? So just to be clear to everybody, Davis built the slat model this offseason, the prospecting model. And in doing so, I mean, you leaned on AI, right? I know that. I used,
Claude. It was all Claude code. Yeah.
And so in doing that though, like, was that the biggest reveal for you in finding
100%? Biggest reveal was I'd be like, okay, cause what I did, and any of you guys out there can replicate this for not much money. And it'll probably take you a lot of time if you're not native to the coding like I was, so it took me a long time. But I downloaded every NFL play from the last 20 years. I downloaded every college football game for the last 15 years. I downloaded every combine measurement metric, whatever. Honestly, like even more data. And I was like, so I collate all these together so it's all tied to one player. And then I was like, okay. So what I started doing, and I don't even know if this is right. I'm sure a mathematician could start telling me all the errors I'm making. But the thing that I did was I wanted to back test based off of what guys did in the NFL, not like forward test. So it would be like, look at what Jahmyr Gibbs and every other running back has in common. Put their, first year fantasy scores, second year fantasy scores, third year fantasy scores, year 1 through 3, likelihood of finishing running back 1, likelihood of finishing running back 2 for all the positions, and then start to correlate that backwards with the college stuff. So like, did weight matter? Did 40 time matter? And I'm sure you obviously know this, like draft capital is number 1 far and away, not close. It at everything. It beats it. I found very, very small correlations with weight, for running backs and for wide receivers. Interestingly enough, RAS for tight ends had a pretty strong positive correlation. Did not at all at wide receiver and running back, not because it isn't good to have a good RAS, but because it's completely accounted for in draft capital.
That's what I've kind of concluded as well through the years is that I do think that athleticism obviously matters to a degree, but teams just there's a negative correlation with
teams overvalue it, right?
Yeah.
Because teams are like, okay, I think what it is teams are like, yeah, this guy kind of sucked in college, but like, imagine him with our coaches. Imagine Dante Thornton with Pete Carroll, dude. We are going to unlock this guy.
Yeah.
I think it's the hubris of the NFL front office. But, I found the same things you found: receiving yards per team pass attempt.
Mm-hmm.
There's some extra stuff that you have in the ZAP model that I was not able to suss out because we were just doing things differently. Like, I was not able to find good rushing. Like, I have like a very, very small component of it is rushing, but it really just as a binary, like a yes, no. Like, did this guy have good rushing production? Did this guy not? And then it's like a really small bump.
You mentioned, I know that we're getting a little nerdy here, but I think it's interesting because you're coming at this from a perspective of like newly modeling things, right? And I've been doing this, like I've been iterating the ZAP model now for like 6 years or so. And so I think it's interesting because others have hit me up so many times asking about like where to start, how to do it, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think that what you're bringing up is so important about the number of inputs in a model. Oftentimes less is more because you start to overfit when you have way too many inputs, and you start to make these assumptions about you got to be the next Puka Nacua in order to be a day 3 hit at wide receiver without realizing that that's just a one-off, and it's okay if your model didn't love him the way that it would love a second round wide receiver or something like that, because that's just the way that it naturally sort of occurs and works. And then on top of that, like, I've learned over the last like year or two, where last year I really stripped things back, especially at running back. I think that you had mentioned that I know that you just did too, but like receiving is so important at running back for these things, right? Like where draft capital seems to capture enough at with rushing metrics, in my opinion, and the receiving metrics are really where running backs can differentiate themselves. But the one thing that I did this year that I think should be helpful is like I don't want to get so simplistic that there's not a backstop for some guys. Like there could be one metric that the guy just really sucks at, and if there's not a backup for that metric in some way, then all of a sudden the model's just missing that guy completely, even if it's not improving correlation at all. If it's more neutral than anything else, it's also nice to just have that other metric to make sure that, if a guy's a really bad adjusted receiving yards per team pass attempt, but he's pretty good in total yards per team play or something like that, and the model's only, marginally better, even that marginal difference in help can be helpful with like not missing on that one player, is what I found.
I completely agree, because that's what I did at tight end. Was I literally added in just raw receptions, just literally raw, not percentage, just like literally like basically like a yes, no. Is this guy a receiving tight end? And it improved the results like massively.
Yeah. So with you building that, were there any rookies that you found yourself higher on this year than the market?
Well, it's so interesting because it's a guy I don't even really like now, which is Emmett Johnson. Because he was so small, 202 pounds. Yeah. Frankly, guys I expected to like, who I didn't like, Damon Claiborne, like too small, not like a great rushing profile. But part of that is also like, and I'm sure you've experienced this many times, is just kind of knowing, so this is what the model says, but inside of that, there's just this whole world of range of outcomes for these guys, and kind of like what career paths can look like for certain archetypes of players. So like Damon Claiborne actually is one of my favorite examples, where I'm like, yeah, the modeling stuff doesn't love him, but given that kind of like smaller, super fast kick returner style of guy, those guys generally are not going to have like great, like long careers, but they're super lightning in a bottle, where like for 2 years, they scored like 14.5 fantasy points per game because the situation was just right for them. Jaden Blue is a really interesting one, where like that guy sucks, but he's in this situation where he's got a 26-year-old running back with a degenerative knee condition ahead of him. The team signed no one else at backup running back. And I'm like, he was really bad last year, but like you can imagine what would happen if he wasn't that bad. I mean, actually, I should say he didn't get a chance to prove if he's any
We have
good
no
or
idea.
bad.
Yeah.
And then the game against the Giants, he looked like he was playing at a different speed than Javonte Williams was all season. So maybe he doesn't suck.
Yeah, I mean, the Zap model actually liked Jaden Blue, which is why I didn't mind him last year. And, you know, I think people thought that it was like me jumping on this bandwagon of like just placing this player onto the Cowboys and therefore he'll be good. And it's like, no, he was like young, had good receiving production. Like he was not a bad prospect in my opinion. And so, you know, obviously we didn't get anything out of him, but I think it's a good point, you know, that, you know, I think that you're using the slap model similarly as I use Zap, where it's like, I want this thing to guide me more than anything else. I want to make sure that I'm not getting too high or too low on these players based on what I know objectively the model is saying, as opposed to it's just really easy, man, to like fall in love with a prospect and start to think irrationally about that guy and then do that over and over and over again for dozens of prospects. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there just not having like cohesive thoughts about these dudes, where it's just you're drafting them because you need to draft them because you've created this narrative about the player. But I do think that these models just allow you to be a little bit more grounded with reality in a way, you know, and like groupthink doesn't take over the same way that it would otherwise take over. But was Emmett Johnson like the dude that you were surprised you were higher on? Like, were you higher on him post draft too? Is that in total? Like, did you get him in rookie drafts and such?
No, I mean, honestly, like someone kind of ended up always liking him a little bit more. A couple surprising results. Jordan Tyson was the number one wide receiver for me, even with draft capital plugged in there. Dejon Stribling was like the worst second round pick of all time, according to the thing that I built. And Stowers ahead of Sadiq, even with the draft capital difference, because Sadiq's production was even adjusted for context, raw, just god awful. Just like the most like this guy was a backup tight end at Penn State ass production of all time. Like, you know, I believe he was 6th on the Ducks in receiving yards his final season in Oregon. Just like not good.
No. I mean, like I get it. Like it certainly is like isn't great production. My thing with Sadiq is I wonder what it would be like if Kenyon Sadiq had gone back to school this next year. And I know they have another tight end that would be
probably
productive.
better than him.
Yeah, right. That's potential first round pick. But if Sadiq goes back to college this year, let's just pretend like would you anticipate him like having a good season?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm not overly penalizing him. I'm not killing him. And like my actual rankings, I had him ahead because 17 is big. And I think that the data probably does not tell the whole story with a guy like that. Another thing that's just very tough about modeling right now, I'm curious your thoughts on this, is the NIL stuff for the guys at the premier schools is kind of messing everything up because your teammates are like, oh, dude, the crazy 2017 Bama team. Now every good team is like that. Now Ohio State and Alabama and Florida and Oregon and all they have, not only do they have all the 5-star recruits that they already have, but anyone who was good at Valdosta State University is now getting paid $250,000 to transfer to that school. Like the wide receiver 7 on Ohio State might be an NFL caliber player.
No, I mean, that part's very fair. And it's one part that I didn't investigate like that deeply on when I did an episode on like NIL and such and like how it's impacting things. The one thing that I found is that it's really not mattering when you focus on the things that matter for us in fantasy football, which is like top 100 picks, right? Like day 3 picks really don't matter for us at the end of the day. Like they do, but they don't, you know, like of course we're throwing darts. They're on our benches in Dynasty, and we're hoping for the best. And some of them are going to hit, but very rarely are they going to hit consistently. What I found was that, yes, we have fewer early declares, and that's, you know, obviously there's some signal with like early declare status and such. But realistically, we don't have fewer early declares that then get drafted high. It's that a lot of the early declares that we're missing are more day 3 picks. Like a lot of the guys that are going top 100, yes, we're going to get a little bit more like 23, 24-year-old players at the moment. You know, I think it's going to come down a little bit with the COVID stuff, like coming to an end, right? With that extra year of eligibility. But realistically, like the top 100 players are not that different, like demographically than they were 10 years ago. Like not tremendously different. But I do think that the teammate stuff could be interesting because of what you just noted and how like things are just so top heavy at this point with the college football landscape. And teammate score is a really, really difficult thing to calculate in general. So it could be that
that took me a long time because of Jalen Waddle. I finally figured it out. But like, I was like, why does my shit just think Jalen Waddle sucks?
Yeah.
And first off, I had a bug that was not calculating per game stuff properly because it was saying like Jalen Waddle had like a 12% dominator rate because he only played 5 or 6 games his final season. So that was a bug I had to fix. And then the teammate score was another big thing that I had to figure out.
Teammate score is not only that, but teammate score is really difficult because it's hard to project the future. The Jeremiah Smiths, right? Like, how do you properly factor Carnell Tate playing with him? I just fudged that. I literally just said treat Jeremiah Smith like the 5th overall pick in the next year's draft. Yeah, I literally just said do that. You can, there's probably some way and some database out there that at least gives you some rough projection for some of these guys that you could throw in there. But I haven't done any of the future stuff, so I always say just like, yeah, take it with a grain of salt. Like Carnell Tate should probably have a higher teammate score than he does. He is getting credit for like Emeka Ibuka and such, but like it's certainly an inexact science. Who are the rookies that you were lower on versus consensus then?
Still lower than consensus on Stribling. Kalen Black, even with the draft capital boost and like the stuff I was like, this guy's like a UDFA, like even still.
He's 24 and a half years old. That was a big thing for me, for the model at least. Yeah.
Katron Allen was lower on Katron Allen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of some of the other wide. Oh, Surratt. Surratt was a little bit lower.
Interesting.
In mine. Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't remember exactly what contributed to that. Higher on Jacoby Lane too.
Really? Okay. So the Surratt and Lane thing's interesting because a lot of these models, like mine, likes Surratt more than Lane from the standpoint, not like with draft capital, it technically had Lane ahead, but when you get that low in the draft and such, like it's kind of like a choose your own adventure, like go with your favorite at that point because it's just not substantially different from a investment standpoint. But Surratt, to me, and to a lot of people, had like a pretty like all-encompassing, like pretty good production profile in general, and like the gradual increase. Is it an early declare thing for Jacoby Lane, you think?
It's early declare, and I also gave him teammate score credit for the way that I built it. Was I gave him teammate credit score for Zachariah Branch, who is his teammate as a freshman, and there was another NFL player on that USC team.
Lemon, obviously.
Yeah, and outproduced Lemon, by the way, when they were like Lemon did not play when they were true freshmen, and Jacoby Lane did. So I think, and it's, by the way, it's very possible that the way that I have stitched together all this teammate score stuff is not good, and that it's too maybe not good. Like the way it tests is fine, but it's too involved, and I'm actually not gaining any signal from it. It's very, very possible Jacoby Lane sucks, and I shouldn't have calculated these things this way.
I think that everyone stemming from this discussion especially should be trying to build something if they're interested in it, like period. Like there's so many tools to be able to do this thing. And I also love when you go out, like you, Davis, you go out and you build that. And then you're like, oh, some of this stuff, or like a lot of this stuff is stuff that like is in the ZAP model, which makes me feel good about what I developed for the ZAP model. You know what I mean? Like I feel more confident then that the inputs, the metrics and stuff are, significant if, other people are, it's like, it's the scientific method, right? Like if someone's repeating something that you did to a degree, you're obviously measuring certain things. Like it's a slightly different thing that we're measuring. But if someone's repeating that thing and getting similar results, that's good. That's like, that makes me feel good about what is being produced as opposed to the opposite. So,
well, yes, you wouldn't want the data that you found to have signal to have someone else use the same data and then find that it was not falsifiable. That would actually be quite bad.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which I think is the advantage that you get with data in general, right? Like it's a lot more difficult it's a lot easier to piggyback off of each other with data because it's just easy to, like, it's not a, obviously it's great to have a math background and to understand what the modeling is actually doing, but I'm talking about just like the individual statistics. If someone says that is reputable or that you think is smart or whatever the case may be, and they say, hey, this metric matters for this, then you can literally just say, okay, I'm going to start to leverage that metric. Whereas if you're watching film, it's going to be a lot more difficult to do that. You have to like sit down and learn that thing in more detail. But with modeling and with data, you can at least like continue to build a little bit more easily, in my opinion. Both methods are fine. I'm not starting that war. That's not what this is about. But I do think that's a benefit to modeling with prospecting and such. Let's move on to 2026. Because how many best ball drafts are you up to at this point?
I mean, over 1,000.
You're trying to draft more teams than anyone else on the planet this year, yes?
I am trying to. I won't, because Sacrilegious and Shady will draft more than me. But other than those two, I'll be number 3 with the bullet. How about this? I'll be the only person with a humanities degree who drafted over 3,000 fantasy football teams.
There we go. All right. So when you look at 2026 drafts, do you think there's anything substantially different about this year versus last year? That can be best ball related. But let's also focus on like home leagues, redraft, season long leagues. Like,
yeah,
what do you think it changed year over year?
Running backs are at like peak pricing almost. Like not like 2008 pricing or whatever, where literally the whole first round would be running backs or whatever. But in terms of like what we've learned about fantasy football, like with a modern scientific bent, this is like running backs could not be more expensive and still hew closely to anything we've actually learned about fantasy football in the last 10 years. And there's a discount on the really, really good fantasy football tight ends because they weren't very good last year because people are scared. You know, Bowers is a 2nd round pick. McBride is a 3rd round pick. Loveland is a 4th or 5th round pick. Like these guys are huge advantage creators. The thing, and I'm sure you found this in your research, which is that you start looking into the elite tight end data and it can get skewed so poorly by like Gronk rolling his ankle in the wrong week or Kelsey having a bad season or whatever, because the elite tight ends are so few and far between that the data is so small and wonky.
Yeah, it's like when you're prospecting tight ends, right? Like there's only like 6 good tight ends from the last 10 years, 15 years. So like when you're prospecting them and you're trying to model for this stuff, you know, I've been saying it, you know, Kenyon Sadiq gets a Noah Fant comp as one of his like everyone had that comp, but it is a very good analytical comp. And people freak out and they're like, oh, Kenyon Sadiq's going to suck. There's no way he's going to hit. And it's like, guys, Noah Fant or like Evan Ingram's a better example because that was another comp for Sadiq. And it's like an Evan Ingram outcome for Kenyon Sadiq is actually good. Like this is actually a good
for
thing
sure.
because tight end just doesn't have high end production. Like you're not going to get Brock Bowers comps. It's just not a thing that's going to happen, you know?
Yep.
And so, yeah, I noticed that a little bit too. I want to talk about the running back thing because a lot of times the answer is to zig while everyone zags, and that would mean going more 0 RB this year. Do you think that is viable / smart, or do you think the meta is kind of on point with like a running back start, and then just kind of build out your wide receivers, maybe get a tight end early on instead of one of those wide receivers or running backs? But you know, generally speaking, getting multiple running backs in the first few rounds.
I think it will ultimately be pretty tough to do because the profiles of the running backs we used to really like to draft as sleepers, like 5 years ago, Byshell Tootin would have been a 13th round pick. Now he's a 5th round pick. Or RJ Harvey would have, they take Jonah Coleman, they re-signed Dobbins. He would have been like, he went undrafted in my league with my buddies or whatever. And now he's an 8th round pick. And also it's sort of, you're making a big bet that, you know, McCaffrey and Barkley and Henry kind of all hit the cliff at once. Like, hey, if those 3 guys all hit the cliff this year, there are going to be a lot of people who are like, who could have seen it coming? You know, impossible. But dude, those guys, like, first off, Derrick Henry is like beyond the danger zone. Derrick Henry is in like, that guy could retire tomorrow. And I'd be like, yeah, dude, he's 33. Like you know, but honestly, and it's such a results-based thing that we do. Like people determine if your strategy was good or not based on if it worked. But you would have had a real hard time telling me 2 years ago that 3 of the top 15 players in fantasy football were all 30-year-old running backs. I'd been like, no chance, dude. Everyone would not lose their minds like that. And turns out we're there.
It is kind of interesting because if you look, I did a lot of the research on like the changing landscape of these offenses, going heavier personnel, and why like wide receiver twos in particular are so flat. Like if you do rankings weekly, it was like, okay, there's 8 guys that we like that are going to put up really good, the JSNs of the world that are going to put really good numbers up. But then there's this giant cliff, and then there's like 30 dudes who are all doing the same thing in the wide receiver 2 range, right? Like that are just giving you like fine production, but there's not that much that's differentiating them from one player to the next. And
yes,
one of
the two things have happened at the same time, right? Wide receiver 2 production has died as running back production has increased. So we've seen both things really impact.
Yeah. But I'm trying to also get to like the, thinking back to 2015 to 2017, 18, when zero RB was pretty viable, like really not a bad way to approach things. And it made a lot of sense. And, I'm not saying that it was the optimal strategy, but it was a strategy that you could deploy and find more success. And I think you can right now. And I think part of that though is also the way that teams are deploying these backs, and how you would have like, remember Chris Thompson, right? Like,
oh boy, I.
He was like the go-to type zero RB player, where in a full PPR format, you could get by legitimately with a random RB2 week from a pass catching running back like that, right? Where like that pass catching back would give you 14 PPR points in a given week at times. And you'd be like, all right, that's sweet. That's fine. He'll catch 7 random passes towards the end of a game, and you'll be good to go. But with the way that the NFL has shifted back into this heavy personnel, we are seeing more targets go to tight ends and fewer targets go to running backs. And I'm wondering, this kind of goes back to the Damon Claiborne example, because I think Claiborne fits that mold of like what a Chris Thompson used to be, but does that work in today's game quite the same way? And does that hurt what goes on with zero RB? You know what I mean? Like, cause zero RB to me is not just about injuries. It's not only about that side. It's also just about like having some sort of replaceable asset early on in the season as the fragile nature of the position starts to come to fruition and occur, and these injuries happen, and that backup running backs are better than backup wide receivers who get hurt, et cetera, et cetera. And so do you think that that's also playing a role in the way that like zero, or do you have a take on it, of zero RB maybe not being as optimal anymore because of the shift to like 12, 13, run heavier schemes, and that just benefiting simply rushing running backs instead of really benefiting the receiving backs, which is where the cheat code comes in fantasy football?
100%. Yes. The death of the Nyheim Hines type, because something I've noticed is what a lot of teams have been doing is the Nyheim Hines, the Chris Thompson, that guy's been phased out for a guy who weighs 230 pounds. And a lot of times those guys are actually just out there to block. Like right. Samaje Perine is just out there to block. I mean, the Chargers, really good example of this. They just gave up on playing Amari Hampton on passing downs and brought out 300-pound Tucker Fisk and said, hey, keep Justin upright. And so if pass catching backs are not out there to actually catch passes on passing downs, those really what's kind of happened in the modern game is those tertiary targets have started to go to second tight ends now.
Right.
Has been the big change, which is bad for fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people realize that like back in the day, we could look at round 14 and get like a running back that had 50 catch upside, like yes. Actual 50 catch upside, and you kind of like, you can squint and be like, well, what about Kenneth Gainwell or something like it? But it's like, that's happening on top of the market getting sharper, like maybe the data doesn't bear it out completely when you look at like ADP versus postseason result. But in terms of like really pinpointing who that potential pass catcher might be or who that player might be, I do think that the market is just, I mean, maybe it's best ball only and it won't show up in that way in a home league, but maybe Kenneth Gainwell is really a 12th round pick when we get to, or 13th round pick when we get to, our home league drafts and such, in August, but I mean, probably won't just because of the way that things are trending with Bucky Irving right now. But regardless, like, I do think that like that is sort of an untold story of what's going on in fantasy football at the moment. And then you have tight ends benefiting, like you said. Are you right now, like in drafts, like, do you envision there being more teams that have like legitimately 2 viable tight end options? Like, do you think that Michael Mayer or, 2 Rams tight ends are going to be viable in like a season long format?
I do think that we will see more tight ends started in flex in your home league than ever. Yeah. I think there will be a team in your league that drafted Jake Ferguson and then picks up whoever off the waivers in week 3, and then they go to look at the projections of their favorite projection provider, and they're like, Terrence Ferguson projects for more points than Jalen Coker. Why would I start Jalen Coker? You know? Yeah, I think that's going to be huge this year. That's my guess. If all the things that teams are saying about the 12 and the 13 personnel, I mean, we even got Mike McCarthy, who is one of the kings of 11 personnel. Right. Like, I'd rather die than not play 11 personnel, talking about 12 personnel for your Pittsburgh Steelers. So if it's that pervasive, then I really do think that'll be the case.
Do you think? Okay, so you brought this up, so I'll ask you. Like, do you think that this is trendy? And obviously this has been going on for like a few years now. Like, it's not, I've talked about it a little bit before this past season. I know Rich Rebar's done a lot of work on it, over the last couple of years and such. The thing that I think though is like the reason why it's coming out the way that it is in analysis right now so frequently with heavier personnel and such is because there was a pretty dramatic shift year over year this past year. It was trending in this way. And then in 2025, things like really, and I think a lot of it is probably like also narrative based, where you're like, Sean McVay is the one that's leading the charge. Like the Rams are the team. If it was Arthur Smith doing it, we'd be like, yeah, who cares? Yeah. But then meanwhile, I'm sitting here and I'm like, Arthur Smith kind of sharp. Like, he kind of was doing a lot of this stuff before it became as popular. Remember Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith, baby? Arthur Smith had it first. The problem with Arthur Smith though, is that he was being way too democratic, if you will, with his individual player use and not really maximizing the talent that he had on his team. But I think the idea behind what he was doing is probably not wrong. But do you think that this will be just a little blip, or is this like a years to come kind of thing? No, this is blippy as hell, dude. I'll tell you the most obvious reason why this is blippy as hell. How many of your favorite teams out there, dear listener, how many of your favorite teams, yeah, you're dude, I'm a big Falcons fan. I'm a big Jags fan. You really want your second tight end? You really want Nate Boerichter to have 40 catches? Because that's what this requires. This requires an organizational and philosophical commitment that if you are going to play 12 personnel, you have to show the defense, we will throw to this guy. We'll do it. So I think that that's right from the standpoint of, like, I look at Jacksonville in particular. Okay. And Gladstone comes out after the draft and he goes, he's like, oh yeah, this is basically saying like, this is the meta, right? This is what teams are doing. So we're drafting these tight ends. But then you look at their personnel and you're like, but why would they? Like, it feels like they might try to force it to start the season. And then they're like, wait a second, Parker Washington's only playing 60% of the snaps. Like, what are we doing here? Like, why aren't we getting these wide receivers? If the Steelers in particular did this, it would be one of the dumbest play calling to say. Liam Cohen's got to be smarter than that, dude. I mean, of course. But what I'm saying though is that I think teams like that are built like that are going to force the issue a bit and try to do what they think is proper and right. But I've been saying all offseason that I think that the benefit in doing this is what Sean McVay and the Rams did, and that is having very versatile tight ends that are able to do a lot and line up all over the formation so that you can react to what defenses are giving you at the line and not simply just say, oh, we're going to power this through and just beat you through sheer force. Like there's so much X's and O's going on from these like very high level thinkers of football, going to McVay as the example, that, they're obviously doing this in reaction to both too high, right, defensively, but then also smaller. I mean, you have smaller defenses now in terms of like just weight. Like you have just smaller players that you will be able to run against more easily than you would in 1995, right? Where it was just a completely different game. And so I think defenses won't be able to necessarily react in the next year because they have to rebuild. They have to do things to try to react to what all of these teams that are doing heavy are doing. But to your point, offenses are going to have a hard time because how do you force the issue with these fourth tier tight ends versus a legitimate wide receiver starter.
100%. And it's always a give and a take, right? The NFL goes in waves. Teams start to construct their teams differently. And that, like, actually a great example of this, is kind of happening in basketball, right? Oh, dude, play 5 wings, play Kevin Durant as your center, Draymond as your center. We got to get smaller. We got to have 5 out spacing. The big hack this year in the NBA was offensive rebounding. Teams were like, what's actually great? Instead of making everyone just make all these shots, the Houston Rockets, before Steven Adams got injured, were rebounding 24% of their own misses. Like, they were like, you were just generating extra possessions. And that's just an example of how you start to zig when the zag. And I don't even, I'm not smart enough about real football to know exactly what the zig. Yeah, I don't exactly know what the zig is. I have some ideas. I have some thoughts. Funnily enough, I actually did a thread last year early on about 12 personnel where I was like, this is an obvious solve to this problem, because you can run out of it. And if your second tight end isn't Noah Gray, you can throw out of it. So some team, the Steelers actually threw great out of 12 personnel. They were awesome. But one obvious drawback I can think about of playing 12 is that you can't really run vertical stuff much out of that. So it's still pretty easy to keep 8 guys in the box and still feel fine defending the pass. Yeah, that's just the first thing I thought of.
I think from our perspective as fans too, we got to hope that teams have to be more honest with what's going on up at the line and allowing then these too high looks to not happen as frequently, because it hurts the game if we're being real. Like the fact that these big plays aren't going to be able to happen and come together as frequently as they did before. But I think it's a really interesting conversation, because on one hand, I agree from a personnel standpoint that it makes no sense to use some of these second, third tight ends in place of some very legitimate pass catching wide receivers. Like there are some teams out there. I think Jacksonville's just like the easiest example, or Pittsburgh's another one, like you said, where it's like, why would you force that when you have the wide receiver rooms that you do? Like get more creative with their use, as opposed to forcing the issue of having 2 or 3 tight ends on the field. But then on the flip side, that's what defenses are also giving. And it's going to be hard for defenses to like truly just like flip some switch and just like all of a sudden have a defense that can defend this flawlessly, So it's going to be a really interesting thing to watch, and it's going to affect fantasy football in a lot of different ways. All right, I want to ask you about the quarterback position in fantasy. We had a few years where like early round quarterbacking was pretty strong. And then last year happened where it really was not the best strategy in the world. We had a lot of late round hits, and scoring in general was down at the quarterback position, which really helped as well. Do you think that it's clear this year to go late round quarterback? And then who are your favorite like later round darts?
I think the middle round. I think it's mid round quarterback, kind of the same as it ever was. The quarterback window. You got, Herbert with McDaniels. You have the Mahomes pricing. It's like completely nonsensical. It's just based on right now, I guess, the fact that people thought he was going to be injured. Purdy. Purdy has just like put together a great resume of just being like a quarterback 1 in fantasy, and is available in the 10th round of drafts right now. I'm the only fantasy analyst that is brave enough to say this. Everyone else is just like cowering in the shadows. But Malik Willis is a better bet than Trey Lance was. Well, actually, not as good of a bet as Trey Lance was, but a better bet than year 2 Anthony Richardson was. Better bet than any of the Justin Fields non-Bears years. So any year Fields was not a Bear. We all knew it was so close. Like he was that close to getting benched. Malik Willis, he would have to be really, really bad to be performance benched. Not saying it can't happen. Yeah. But he would have to be worse than Fields was, probably.
Yeah, but even in regular non-best ball, regular season long, is Malik Willis
who cares?
Not the easiest slam dunk late round pick imaginable?
Probably the easiest pick in a redraft format on the board currently. Yeah.
Right. Because if he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. But you're gonna I genuinely believe that Malik Willis has a chance to be just as prolific as a rusher as like almost Lamar. Like he's that good on the ground that from like a fantasy accumulation and point standpoint, I'm not saying that he's going to be as good as Lamar Jackson, because I think Lamar's underrated in general. I think still somehow, but as a rusher, like a pure runner, there's so much upside with Malik Willis that I don't understand, like I was looking at ADP data because I'm doing the quarterback section of the guide right now. And there's some, like, I think Fantasy Pros ADP had Malik Willis at like QB 21 or something, where give me him over basically any pocket passer in QB2 range.
Give me over Goff, over Stafford. Yeah, just give me Malik Willis.
Yeah. So that's an easy. Any other late round darts? Like, are you into? Let's just consider. Let's look at this from a season long lens, not best ball, where best ball's a little bit sharper right now. But like Tyler Shuck, Cam Ward, are you into those guys?
I am into Tyler Shuck. I probably would not draft Cam Ward in any redraft format right now at quarterback. Trying to think like true late round. I mean, most of the rest of them, like Mendoza ran a little bit in college and he's a big guy. So like maybe he's like a week 4 waiver. I mean, Cousins will probably start the first couple games of the season for them. But I would just say like, it's, the Malik Willis thing is so, and it, rushing has been priced at such a premium at the quarterback position for so long that it's strange to see Willis be going so cheap.
And I also think like, what would it take for him to be ranked higher? Like, do they need, is it because of is it because of the ambiguity? Probably a lot of it, but is it also because of the weapons and what they have working there? Like, what's more important? You know what I mean? Like, what is the thing that's pushing him down that people are just like, there's no way, or, I'm just not going to go after this. But I don't know. I'm willing to take a chance because in the worst case scenario, in 95% of leagues, you can still stream a low end QB1. It's
Correct.
still a very, very reasonable thing to do.
Yes.
All right. Let's real quick. Top 2 values right now at running back and wide receiver.
Top two values at running back. Keaton Mitchell, available as like a 12th, 13th round pick. And I'll actually give Jalen Warren. Jalen Warren he fits great on a team that needs a flex starter. If you want to try and do the hero RB or zero running back thing, you can slot him in pretty comfortably, I think, as a running back too. Rico Dowdle is what he is, but I actually think Gainwell probably a little bit better, and think it's sort of interesting that the market just is assuming that the running back production will be split equally between those two guys. It's not like Rico had got it. I think he got 1 year, $5 million with some incentives, I believe was his contract. So it's not like he's making less money than Tyler Algier, for example.
The one thing I'll say, Jalen Warren is just unbelievably underrated as a player too.
Just really good. Yeah.
If you look like middle round running backs, done so much research on this about yards per route run with like middle round running backs and such. Jalen Warren is like 75th to 90th percentile in yards per out run every single year at the position. Like, he's just a really good player. And then I like the Keaton Mitchell call out as well. Just a great fit with Mike McDaniel. Who are some of the wide receivers?
Luther Burden would be the number 1 value at wide receiver. He really kind of in a more optimistic era, like 2024 fantasy football, when optimism reigned supreme before we'd all been beaten to death by Javonte Williams. He probably would have been a 2nd round pick. Very similar to like how Drake London was a 2nd round pick before he ever actually did anything. We would have done the same thing with Luther Burden. And, I'll give the people what they want. Xavier Worthy, wide receiver 50. For the first time in Xavier Worthy's career, the math-based drafters are in on Xavier Worthy, because you just look at the Kansas City offense, you're like, ball got to go somewhere, man. Yeah. It's probably so. One of the guys is in jail with a knee infection, and one of them is hosting community fundraiser barbecues with Coach Reed, and one of them's expensive and one of them's cheap.
And you can at least like create the narrative that he was hurt last year. I mean, they came out and said it.
He played with a torn labrum, and Reed said, we had to change his whole route tree up because we didn't want him doing a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
When he went out and said that, like, that's one of the few coach speak things that I've actually like kind of taken and utilized this offseason so far, was the fact that like he recognized that things were different for Xavier Worthy last year. I think that's meaningful to some degree. All right, give me a fade at the 4 positions.
Fade at the quarterback position. I mean, Josh Allen needs to, like, the opportunity cost is so expensive. He's now eased into, like, on all the major sites into the 20s. I can't do it. I'm such a coward at running back. I'm really not fade. DeAndre Swift doesn't really have anything to do with him. It's just like all the young, exciting guys go next to him.
Yeah.
It's like, do I want DeAndre Swift or do I want TreVeyon Henderson? Do I want DeAndre Swift or do I want Bishal Tootin? It's like, okay, well, do I want Chicken and Rice or do I want a Jersey Mike's?
Right.
It's like, I know it's good for me, but I don't really want chicken and rice tonight, so I'm not gonna eat my chicken and rice. Wide receiver, this one is super easy. I don't even have to think about it. DJ Moore, worst price player on the board. Josh Allen. This is anytime someone starts coming at me for DJ Moore, this is my favorite stat. In 2025, Josh Allen had 2 games with 50 fantasy points, depending on your fantasy point provider, but 2 games with 50 fantasy points. Do you happen to know the highest score of one of his teammates in those games?
Like wide receivers?
Yes, I think Cook had a really good game in one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, pass catchers.
Oh, well, since you're bringing it up, it's probably low. But if I were to be reasonable about it and like have no preconceived like idea of what you were going for here, I would say that he'd probably have like an 18 to 22 pointer in there or something like that.
Shakir had a 19 pointer in one of them. In one of them, no one had over 80 yards receiving.
Yeah.
It's just the offense is not about DJ Moore. Even if I thought DJ Moore was as good as I thought he was 4 years ago, which I don't, I still probably would think it's kind of crazy pricing. But now that I think and have evidence that DJ Moore stinks, he was going to get cut by the Bears, and then the Bills, for some reason, gave a second-round pick for him. I don't know. I don't know.
The one thing I would say about Moore, too, I mentioned this on the show a couple weeks ago, but it's kind of crazy that people are making the Stephon Diggs connection with, when Diggs went to Buffalo and how big that was for Diggs. When Diggs was coming off a season with like a 2.7 yards per route run rate, and DJ Moore has been below 1.5 for 2 straight seasons. He's not been very good. I have a hard time ranking Moore, just to be clear. I'm probably not as on that side as you, but I'm definitely more on the avoid side than the target side right now, because it's a projection. The one thing that's keeping me on to Moore is that I do think that his when things break down ability can be there, and because he's not like a nuanced route runner the way that kind of works with Josh Allen, just given the way that Allen plays. And so maybe that really works.
Don't get me wrong, man. DJ Moore, once upon a time, had a bunch of game. Could he improvise his way into 10 touchdowns? I mean, sure, bro.
Right.
But
that's the one thing that's keeping me but yes, I'm with you. Especially because it's in a range where there's so many good wide receivers being drafted.
Exactly. It's like every wide receiver, I'm like, well, that guy could have a career year.
Right.
And then I'm like, DJ Moore.
Right. Do you have a tight end?
Tight end, I'm fading. I mean, again, just don't really want it. This is more of a harder fade, but Tyler Warren, I feel like there is a huge bear case here that is totally underrepresented, which is he's about to now share the field for about 80% of his routes with one of the best targets per route run players in the NFL in Josh Downs. And he used to share about 40% of his routes with that guy. And his quarterback, who sucks, tore his Achilles. I know he Daniel Jones' son run for 8 games last year, and the Colts were really good. But now his quarterback, if that was if that was Daniel Jones' A game, he's probably going to be playing his C game coming back from this. And there's been a year of film on what the Shane Steichen Daniel Jones offense is going to look like. And I'm totally prepared to be wrong about this one because Tyler Warren is quite good. Yeah. He also could score a bunch of 1-yard touchdowns, which is but because you have to take Tyler Warren over Jordan Tyson, over Brian Thomas Jr., over all the quarterbacks. He's in the quarterback kind of window. Got to take him over Drake May. I'm I don't know, man. Tyler Warren's a tough one. All
right, man. Before I let you go, one hot take for the season.
One hot take for the season. I'm actually going to go very off brand here. No, this will be the most off brand I can get. JJ, Justin Herbert throws for 5,000 yards. He'll be the first 5,000 yard pass. Who was the last one? I mean, it's been a lot. It's been since 2021, I believe. 5,000 passing yards from Justin Herbert. McDaniel schemes him up.
Love it.
A bunch of crud that I'm going to hate. I'm going to hate every second of it. But there you go.
Love it. All right, man. Let everyone know where they can find you, your channel, what you're working on, all that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find all of my videos on YouTube if you just search my name. I have 3 channels. So if you like redraft, I have one for that. If you like Dynasty, I have one for that. If you like best ball, I have one for that. And then all of my rankings, all my stuff is over on flockfantasy.com. You can ask me trade questions, start sits,
sweet
team reviews, all that stuff over there.
Awesome. Make sure you guys are checking out lateround.com. Pre-order that draft guide. Otherwise, everyone, as usual, thanks for tuning in.
Lots of places can expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity, which is way more than anyone can do on their own. If we find anything suspicious, like new loans or changes to your financial accounts, we alert you right away, all through text, phone, email, or the LifeLock app. Save up to 30% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/iHeart. Terms apply.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.